So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you to this WWEA webinar, which is taking place as part of our series of webinars. And this time we have a number of webinars about the current status of wind power around the world. We have called it half-year review. And unlike the one we had half a year ago, this webinar will only be now focusing on the Eastern Hemisphere, which means Asian countries and Australia. The reason is that we had too many speakers to have the whole world in one, and we will have another webinar in the coming week with Europe, the MENA region, and also Africa. Now again, it's my pleasure to welcome you. Great pleasure, and I'd like to say thank you to our speakers. We will have first-hand information. We have excellent experts from several markets in Asia and also Australia. Great thank you to also our partners, to the organizations which are behind those speakers. Thank you to Profec Ventus, the partner of this webinar series, which is supporting us. Then I'd like to mention that some technical announcements, that the webinar is of course a public event. We have not only the people participating here, but there's also a live stream broadcast on YouTube. So there will be more people watching there. And we are recording the webinar, and later all the speeches will be published. So whatever somebody says, please be aware. It's public and everybody in principle might have access to this information. I would also like to give you some technical information. As usual, we ask everyone to stay muted unless you are a speaker. Then we unmute you. Also, in case we have time for questions and answers, then we may call you and ask you to raise your voice. In general, we have, of course, the chat function here. So if you have questions to a particular speaker, please write your question here, and we try to address the question by asking the speaker to answer the question. Yeah, I think that is the introduction. And with this, I would like to hand over to our president, Peter Ray, who is the president of the World Wind Energy Association. As we're all now at home, Peter, I suppose you are joining us from Australia, from Tasmania, from your home in Launceston. Peter, if I may ask you to welcome our speakers and the audience.
I'd like to welcome everybody. I'm sorry that I wasn't hooked in earlier, but was trying. I think this is a very important part of the work which WWEA can do to bring to everybody a summary of where we're going in the world with wind energy and the other renewables which inevitably become connected. In Australia, I was pleased to hear what Andrew was able to talk about. And the one thing that perhaps he didn't mention when right at the last talking about batteries, there is a strong movement towards pumped hydro, and the Snowy Mountain scheme is already being worked on to convert the capacity there for pumped hydro. Tasmania has a very high percentage of renewables, about 97%, and it has a very strong hydro element as well as wind, and it is planned to take the energy from Tasmania to meet it with the grid system in Victoria to provide backup to wind and solar in that area. So that's just a little bit more about what's happening in Australia, but I thank Andrew for what he was able to provide. I look forward to hearing the other speakers, and again apologise for the problems at the beginning. Thank you very much, and welcome to everybody who's listening as well as our speakers.